The gavel slammed down like a gunshot. "Mr. Willis, this is your final warning," Judge Amy Coney Barrett said, her voice sharpened by years of command. "One more outburst, and I'll hold you in contempt." Bruce Willis stood calmly at the defendant's table, grey stubble catching the overhead lights, eyes unreadable behind his wire-rimmed glasses. He didn't look like a man out of control. He looked like a man with a plan. "I'm not trying to disrespect the court, Your Honor," Bruce said, voice steady. "I just want to speak for myself." "That's what your counsel is for," Barrett snapped. "You've already fired 2 attorneys this month." "Because they didn't listen," he said. "Same as you." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Barrett narrowed her eyes. The courtroom wasn't packed, just a couple of journalists, a federal clerk, and a few curious observers. But the tension could have suffocated a riot. "Mr. Willis," she said slowly, "are you representing yourself now?" "Yes," Bruce said, "and I've filed a motion to dismiss." She arched a brow. "You're not a lawyer." "I am now," he said. "Graduated from Northwestern School of Law online during the pandemic. Got licensed last year in New Mexico." Barrett stared at him. "This is a federal case in Washington, D.C. And under Title 28 of the U.S. Code, I can represent myself in any federal court. I've filed a pro se motion under Rule 12b-1. The court lacks subject matter jurisdiction." The silence was absolute. The prosecutor, a lean, hawkish man named Fields, fumbled with his papers. The clerk blinked. Barrett leaned forward. "Did you just cite federal civil procedure?" Bruce nodded. "And I attached my certification, page 3 of the packet I submitted yesterday." Barrett reached for the folder on her desk, flipping it open. Her lips moved silently as she read. 2 minutes passed. "Where did you learn all this?" she asked, voice quieter now. Bruce folded his arms. "Prison, 10 years ago, tax fraud. I was guilty, did the time, but I didn't waste it." "You practiced law in prison?" she asked, incredulous. "No," he said. "I studied. I helped guys write appeals, researched precedent, wrote petitions. A guy named Mercado taught me. Used to clerk for a judge before he got caught up in a wire fraud ring. He said I had a mind for strategy." Barrett tapped her pen on the desk. "This is highly irregular, but not illegal," Bruce said. "My motion is valid. And frankly, Your Honor, if you deny it without review, I'll file an emergency appeal with the D.C. Circuit. And they'll see it." The tension had changed now. It wasn't mockery, it wasn't defiance, it was something worse, credibility. Barrett exhaled through her nose and leaned back. "You realize, Mr. Willis, this doesn't change the nature of the charges against you." "I know, I didn't come here for sympathy," he said. "I came here to win." Fields stood suddenly. "Your Honor, this is grandstanding. He's just trying to delay the trial. This man was caught red-handed with sealed evidence. Evidence obtained through an illegal search," Bruce interrupted. "You know it. No warrant, no probable cause. You're hiding behind the color of law." Barrett looked between the two men. Her grip on the gavel loosened slightly. "We'll recess for 1 hour," she said finally. "Mr. Willis, you'd better be ready to argue your motion properly." "I've been ready for years," Bruce said, and as the guards unshackled him, the cameras outside started clicking. Somewhere out there, a nation was watching. And if you're still watching, take a second to subscribe for more real stories like this one, and drop a comment if you've ever seen someone rise above the hate. You're not alone. Bruce sat alone in the holding room, the scent of cheap disinfectant stinging his nose. The folder of legal briefs he'd brought with him lay open on the metal table, pages marked up with fine red ink, annotations crowding the margins. He wasn't reading anymore. He was waiting. A soft knock preceded the door creaking open. A court officer poked his head in. "You've got 5 minutes." "Someone wants to talk to you." Bruce's brow lifted. "Who?" "Some clerk. Said her name's Margot. Judge Barrett's office." Bruce blinked. "Send her in." Margot stepped in cautiously, mid-30s, hair tied back, carrying a leather-bound notebook. She looked nervous but curious, like someone who couldn't decide if she was meeting a fraud or a legend. "I read your brief," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "Twice." Bruce didn't move. "And?" "It's good. Unorthodox, but good. You exposed a procedural flaw that nobody caught, not even Fields. The jurisdiction argument is thin, but the illegal search claim, that's solid. Bruce nodded once. I know. She sat opposite him, lowering her voice. Judge Barrett's not used to being surprised. Especially not by someone she thought was a washed-up actor playing legal dress-up. Bruce chuckled. Yeah, I get that a lot. Margot leaned forward. How far are you planning to take this? All the way. I didn't break the law this time, and if I let them bury me without fighting, I'll be proving them right. Even if you win the motion, they'll come back harder. You know that, right? He looked her straight in the eyes. I'm not afraid of a system I've already survived. There was a long silence. You scared her, you know, Margot said finally. Judge Barrett. She didn't expect a fight. She thinks I'm still acting, Bruce said. But this isn't a script. Margot stood, hesitation flickering in her posture. I'll tell her you're ready. I was born ready, he muttered under his breath. An hour later, the courtroom was humming again. Bruce walked in with no chains, no escort. He looked like a man who'd just walked into a boardroom, controlled, calm, deliberate. Fields scowled from across the room. Barrett was already seated. Mr. Willis, she said. You may begin. He stepped to the podium and looked at the judge, not with defiance but with precision. Your Honor, the Fourth Amendment protects all citizens, even former felons, from illegal search and seizure. The evidence central to the prosecution's case was seized without a warrant or exigent circumstance. The agents acted on a hunch, not on probable cause. That taints the entire investigation. Barrett didn't interrupt. Furthermore, under Mapp v. Ohio 367 U.S. 643, 1961, unlawfully obtained evidence is inadmissible in state and federal courts. This is not a technicality. This is the foundation of American liberty. He paused, let it hang. The prosecution claims the evidence was in plain view, but their own report says they opened a safe. With no warrant, no consent, that's not plain view, that's plain misconduct. A murmur rustled through the room. Barrett steepled her fingers. Mr. Fields? Fields stood, jaw clenched. Even if the search was flawed, the weight of the evidence is overwhelming. Then prove it lawfully, Bruce said. Barrett held up a hand. Enough. The courtroom froze. I'll rule on the motion tomorrow, she said, her voice unreadable. Until then, this court is adjourned. The gavel came down, but the war had only just begun. Judge Barrett didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table in her modest Capitol Hill townhouse, reading Bruce's motion again, highlighter in hand. The city buzzed faintly outside. Sirens, muffled conversations, the occasional horn. But inside it was silent, except for the scraping of her pen across paper. It wasn't just that Bruce Willis had filed a compelling motion. It was the way he'd done it. Crisp citations, nuanced argument, control over tone. It read like the work of someone who'd been sharpening his mind in the dark for years. And it annoyed her. Amy prided herself on spotting performance. She'd presided over dozens of high-profile cases, from insider trading to violent conspiracies. But this didn't feel like performance. It felt like something more dangerous, a man with nothing to lose and just enough knowledge to burn everything down. Her husband came downstairs, rubbing his eyes. You're still reading that? I can't stop thinking about it, she said. He's not just playing smart, he is smart. There's method in what he's doing. Isn't that good? He asked. A citizen using the law to defend himself? She stared at the pages. It's unsettling. He's exposing gaps I didn't know were there. And it's making me question how much I've missed in other cases. He poured himself water, then sat beside her. You always said the law was alive. Maybe he's just reminding you. She didn't answer. The next morning, court was standing room only. Word had spread. Bruce Willis, disgraced actor turned rogue legalist, was challenging the system from within. Reporters scribbled on pads. A law school professor whispered to his students in the back row. Even a retired judge had come to watch. Bruce stood as Barrett entered, posture straight, eyes calm. Fields looked like he'd barely slept. This court is in session, the bailiff announced. Barrett adjusted her glasses and looked down at her bench. After reviewing the defendant's motion, the prosecution's response and relevant case law, she began, I find that the evidence in question was obtained without a valid warrant or legal exception. Gasps. Under Map vs. Ohio and subsequent rulings, I am compelled to suppress the contents of the search in question. The motion is granted. A wave of whispers rippled through the room. Fields shot to his feet. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You may sit, Mr. Fields," Barrett cut in. Bruce didn't react. He simply nodded once, like a man watching the first domino fall. Barrett continued, "This does not mean Mr. Willis is cleared of all charges, but it does mean this case has taken a significant turn. I expect both parties to prepare accordingly." She stood. "We will reconvene in 5 days." Gavel. Dismissed. As the room began to empty, Bruce felt a presence beside him. Margot. "That was bold," she whispered. "Truth usually is," he replied. "What happens now? They'll either dig deeper or come at me dirtier." She hesitated. "You made her think. That doesn't happen often." Bruce looked toward the bench, now empty. "That's the real win." Later that night, Barrett sat in her chambers, door locked, screens off. She stared at a photo on her bookshelf, her graduating class at Notre Dame. She remembered being hungry then, sharp, willing to challenge anyone. Bruce had reminded her of that feeling. She wasn't sure if that scared her more keen or inspired her. The media storm came fast. Within 24 hours of Judge Barrett's ruling, Bruce Willis's name trended across platforms. Headlines ranged from "Die-Hard Star Dismantles FBI Case" to "Ex-con actor outwits feds in courtroom showdown." Opinion segments debated whether he was a folk hero or a manipulator playing the system. Inside the U.S. Attorney's office, Fields seethed. "We underestimated him," he muttered to his colleague. "He's not defending himself, he's laying a trap." "A trap for what?" the colleague asked. "He already won the suppression motion." "He's baiting us into overreaching," Fields growled. "He wants to provoke misconduct." Bruce, meanwhile, worked late in the law library of the detention center. A guard brought him coffee, real coffee, not the powdered stuff. Word had spread among the staff. Some were rooting for him now. He didn't care about the fame. That was gone, buried in old DVDs and past mistakes. What mattered was precision, control. He flipped through Brady vs. Maryland, underlining a passage about prosecutorial obligation to disclose exculpatory evidence. The longer Fields delayed full discovery, the more Bruce suspected they were hiding something. He pulled out a sheet and began drafting a motion to compel. He learned the hard way that power never gave anything freely. It had to be taken, word by word, motion by motion. 5 days later, back in court, Fields stood with a forced grin. "Your Honor, we are prepared to proceed with an adjusted case structure." Barrett nodded. "Mr. Willis?" Bruce rose. "I have a preliminary matter. I'm filing a motion to compel immediate disclosure of all Brady material related to Agent Nolan's conduct during the search." Fields blanched. Barrett raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Bruce walked to the front with a quiet authority that filled the room. "I've obtained affidavits from 2 witnesses who claim that Agent Nolan admitted to forcing open the safe, despite being told not to proceed until a warrant was secured. This was never disclosed by the prosecution. That violates Brady." He handed the documents to the clerk, who passed them to Barrett. "If the government withheld exculpatory evidence," Bruce continued, "then this entire prosecution is tainted." Fields fumbled for a response, but Barrett had already begun reading. Minutes passed. She looked up. "Mr. Fields, is this true? There may have been confusion during the collection process, but did Agent Nolan act against instruction?" Fields hesitated. "I don't have that information." Barrett leaned forward. "Find it, now." Court adjourned in tense silence. Bruce sat alone, breathing slow. Across the aisle, Fields stared daggers. In the hallway, Margot caught up with Bruce. "You're about to make enemies." "I've had worse." She shook her head. "You're not just defending yourself. You're challenging the institution." "They started it," he said. "I'm just not laying down." She studied him for a long moment. "You ever think about what comes after this?" He looked at her. "Every night. But right now, I'm still in the fire." Back in her chambers, Barrett made a call. "Nolan's file," she told the clerk. "Full internal review history. I want it by morning." She hung up, stared out her window. Washington pulsed below. Imposing buildings, limos, cameras, power wrapped in marble. And in a small courtroom down the hill, a man with no badge, no backing, no firm, was rewriting the rules. She smiled faintly. Just once. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds in courtroom 17. The room was full again, reporters in the back, law clerks packed along the wall, and a new energy hanging in the air. Bruce Willis sat in his usual place, a man who no longer looked like a defendant, but like a strategist, waiting for the board to move. Judge Barrett entered briskly. She didn't look at Bruce right away. Instead, she looked at Fields. "Mr. Fields," she said, her voice clipped. "I've reviewed the documents regarding Agent Nolan. It appears your office was aware of previous misconduct allegations involving this agent, including one internal memo warning of procedural overreach." The color drained from Fields' face. "And you failed to disclose that to the defense." Fields cleared his throat. "It wasn't deemed relevant to this case. That wasn't your call to make," Barrett snapped. "It was the court's and the defendant's. The failure to disclose materially exculpatory information is a serious violation of Brady." She turned toward Bruce. "Mr. Willis, based on the pattern of constitutional violations and the government's failure to uphold basic legal duties, I find that continuing this prosecution would undermine the integrity of this court." Silence. "I am dismissing all charges with prejudice." There was a sharp inhale, then a wave of murmurs across the courtroom. A reporter dropped her pen. A junior clerk whispered, "He did it." Fields opened his mouth to object, but Barrett cut him off. "This court is adjourned." The gavel cracked once more, and just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. As Bruce stepped out, flashes burst around him, microphones shoved forward. "Mr. Willis, what are you going to do now? Will you sue the government? Are you going back to Hollywood?" He raised a hand, stopping them. "I didn't win because I'm special," he said calmly. "I won because I refused to stay quiet." This case wasn't about a movie star or a court drama. It was about accountability. And anyone, no matter their past, deserves to be treated fairly under the law. Then he turned, walked away from the noise. A week later, Bruce sat at a cafe just off DuPont Circle. He stirred his coffee absently, eyes watching the soft churn of pedestrians and diplomats weaving through morning traffic. Margot slid into the seat across from him. "How you disappeared." Didn't feel like celebrating. "You made history," she said. "Barrett's ruling is already being cited." Bruce gave a tired smile. "Yeah, but now I need to figure out who I am when I'm not fighting." She paused. "You ever think about practicing for real?" He raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding." "No, you already passed the bar. You've proven you can stand your ground in a courtroom." He looked down at his hands. "What lawyer wants an ex-con on the letterhead?" "The kind that remembers why they became a lawyer in the first place," she said softly. He looked at her, really looked. "Barrett called you a disruption," Margot continued. "But I think you're something else. A mirror. You reminded all of us that the law isn't just rules, it's responsibility." He laughed under his breath. "You're good with words. You're good with justice," she said. The street bustled beyond them, alive with noise and heat. A new chapter waited, one without scripts, without agents, without trailers, just one man and the law. As Bruce sipped his coffee, a reporter passed by without noticing him. For the first time in years, Bruce didn't mind being invisible. He'd already said what needed to be said. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful real-life dramas, and click the video on screen. It was hand-picked just for you, and you're going to love it.